College Football Bowl projections: how Alabama's fate could reshape the postseason. The Athletics live coverage of the latest release of the 2025 College Football Playoff rankings. https://www.newyorktimes.com/athletics/live-blog/college football playoff rankings live updates week predictions results/oezsjni-high-vz/. The focus is on Alabama this weekend, and it's not just because they currently hold the final at-large spot in the college football playoff. The outcome of the SEC championship game could significantly impact up to 30 other bowl matchups, many of which are unrelated to the game itself. Let's explore this from three perspectives. Alabama's victory: if Alabama beats Georgia, the only changes will be within the current CFP rankings. Close loss: if Alabama loses by a narrow margin, it's unlikely they'll drop from their current position. If this happens, the conference's commitment to championship games will be severely tested. Soundly defeat: if Georgia beats Alabama decisively, say 31-17, will Alabama remain in the CFP? If not, will Miami or BYU, if they lose to Texas Tech, take Alabama's place? Let's consider this scenario. If Miami surpasses Alabama and BYU, the head-to-head result with Notre Dame becomes crucial, and Miami might edge out the Irish. Meanwhile, Alabama would be relegated to the SEC's non-CFP bowl pool, likely avoiding the Citrus Bowl, which wouldn't want to pair them with Michigan again. The ReliaQuest Bowl, where Alabama played last year, hasn't had a repeat participant since Tennessee in 2007-2008. So, if Alabama falls, where will they go? The answer affects the entire conference. The SEC projects 2 vacancies in its lineup, and several group of 6 teams would love a chance at an SEC bowl. Right now, that's likely the Liberty and Duke's Mayo Bowls. The ripple effect on other bowls would be significant, starting from Saturday evening and continuing through Sunday afternoon. For now, we'll assume Alabama stays in the CFP, given their regular season win over Georgia. Here are some other notable projections. BYU versus Texas Tech: if BYU loses to Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game, they'll likely return to the Alamo Bowl for the second consecutive season, facing a Pac-12 legacy team like USC, which hasn't played in the Alamo Bowl before. Michigan-Texas: a matchup in the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Eve could draw significant television ratings and potentially launch Texas quarterback Arch Manning and Michigan's Bryce Underwood towards the 2026 Heisman Trophy. Iowa State-Minnesota: despite being just 3 hours apart and constantly recruiting against each other, these teams have only played 5 times in the last 101 years. A desert duel would be exciting for both fan bases. Pittsburgh versus Penn State: a 101st meeting at Yankee Stadium would have Pinstripe Bowl officials thrilled. Vanderbilt versus Iowa: a New Year's Eve showdown in Tampa between Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia and Iowa's defense under coordinator Phil Parker. This year, all 82 bowl slots can be filled without relying on academic progress rates among 5 to 7 squads. If a team withdraws due to player attrition, like Marshall last year, Auburn would be the first alternate. Keynotes: the top 5 conference champions and the top 7 at-large teams qualify for the 12-team college football playoff. The top 4 teams receive first-round byes and play in the Cotton, Orange, Rose, and Sugar Bowls. Teams 5 to 8 host 9 to 12 on December 19th to 20th. If the Big Ten and SEC champions earn byes, they'll play in the Rose and Sugar Bowls, respectively. The next highest-ranked team goes to the closest remaining bowl site. Former Pac-12 schools still adhere to old conference agreements, potentially leading to in-conference matchups in the Alamo, Vegas, Holiday, or Sun Bowls. ESPN events will move the Bahamas Bowl to a new location, yet to be announced. Bowl matchups: December 13, 2025 to January 2, 2026. LA Bowl: Arizona State, Pac-12, versus Boise State, MWC. Salute to Veterans: Southern Miss, Sun Belt, versus Toledo, MAC. Cure Bowl: Old Dominion, Sun Belt, versus Kennesaw State, G5/Open. 68 Ventures Bowl, Louisiana, Sun Belt, vs. Missouri State, Open. Myrtle Beach Bowl, Georgia Southern, Sun Belt, vs. Delaware, Open. Gasparilla Bowl, NC State, SEC/ACC/AAC, vs. USF, Open. Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Utah State, MWC, vs. Central Michigan, MAC. Boca Raton Bowl, Coastal Carolina, Open, vs. Florida International, Open. New Orleans Bowl, Troy, Sun Belt, vs. Jacksonville State, CUSA. Frisco Bowl, Texas State, G5, vs. Fresno State, G5. Hawaii Bowl, Hawaii, MWC, vs. California, American/Other. Game Above Sports Bowl, Northwestern, Big Ten, vs. Ohio, MAC. Rate Bowl, Minnesota, Big Ten, vs. Iowa State, Big 12. First Responder Bowl, Washington State, Open, vs. Arkansas State, Open. Military Bowl, Navy, American, vs. Louisville, ACC. Pinstripe Bowl, Penn State, Big Ten, vs. Pittsburgh, ACC. Fenway Bowl, Duke, ACC, vs. Army, American. Arizona Bowl, San Diego State, MWC, vs. Western Michigan, MAC. Pop-Tarts Bowl, TCU, Big 12, vs. Georgia Tech, ACC. New Mexico Bowl, New Mexico, MWC, vs. UTSA, Open. Gator Bowl, Miami, ACC, vs. Missouri, SEC. Texas Bowl, Houston, Big 12, vs. LSU, SEC. Birmingham Bowl, East Carolina, ACC/SEC/Open, vs. UConn, SEC/ACC/Open. Independence Bowl, Kansas State, Big 12, vs. Louisiana Tech, CUSA/Sun Belt. Music City Bowl, Illinois, Big 10, vs. Tennessee, SEC. Alamo Bowl, BYU, Big 12, vs. USC, Pac-12. ReliaQuest Bowl, Iowa, Big 10, vs. Vanderbilt, SEC. Sun Bowl, Clemson, ACC, vs. Arizona, Pac-12. Citrus Bowl, Michigan, Big 10, vs. Texas, SEC. Las Vegas Bowl, Utah, Pac-12, vs. Nebraska, Big 10. Armed Forces Bowl, UNLV, Open, vs. North Texas, American. Liberty Bowl, Cincinnati, Big 12, vs. Memphis, SEC. Duke's Mayo Bowl, James Madison, SEC, vs. Wake Forest, ACC. Holiday Bowl, SMU, ACC, vs. Washington, Pac-12. Playoff matchups, December 19 to 20, 2025. 7. Ole Miss. 10. Alabama. 6. Texas A&M vs. 11. Virginia. 5. Oregon vs. 12. Tulane. 8. Oklahoma vs. 9. Notre Dame. Cotton Bowl, 3, Indiana vs. A&M/UVA winner. Orange Bowl, 4, Texas Tech vs. ORE/Tulane winner. Rose Bowl, 1, Ohio State vs. ND/OU winner. Sugar Bowl, 2, Georgia vs. Ole Miss/Bama winner. Fiesta Bowl, QF winner vs. QF winner. Peach Bowl, QF winner vs. QF winner. College Football Playoff Championship, SF winner vs. SF winner.